Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for another review. Today we're talking about a Netflix original. I don't review all of these because first of all I oftentimes don't even learn that they exist until they've already come out because, I don't know, streaming originals just don't interest me as much as the theatrical experience does. But this one did catch my eye, number one, because of the overall positive critical reception, and also the fact that it's from a director who I think is very underrated, and that is Collet-Serra. I mean, I didn't care for Jungle Cruise all that much, but this is the same guy who directed The Shallows with Blake Lively. I think that's an overhated movie. This one might be controversial. Black Adam, I think it's overhated. House of Wax from 2005, very overhated. In fact, pretty solid slasher for the early 2000s. He also made 3 or 4 Liam Neeson flicks over the last couple of decades. The 3 that I've seen are The Commuter, Nonstop, and Run All Night. Those 3 I thought were totally decent, and honestly, this film, Carry On, kind of falls in line with those. In Carry On, Taron Egerton plays a TSA agent named Ethan Kopech, who is blackmailed into allowing a deadly nerve agent through the TSA checkpoint and onto a plane. The blackmailer, played by Jason Bateman, is watching Ethan the whole time, but he also has his buddies stationed outside as well, one of whom is instructed to kill Ethan's pregnant girlfriend should he fail to follow instructions. And she, of course, is the operations director for one of the airlines, and that's how she gets involved in the situation. From there, it turns into a cat and mouse game in which Ethan tries to find a way to alert the police or disarm the nerve gas device in a way that's inconspicuous enough that the crooks won't catch him. In a lot of ways, this film reminded me of Red Eye, directed by Wes Craven, although it's mostly set in LAX, the airport, not on board an aircraft, but it still had that kind of vibe to it. You know, a tight, contained thriller that is taking place in one location. It also weirdly has a couple of scenes that brought Toy Story 2 to mind. I've seen comparisons to Die Hard and Die Hard 2 as well, and it's set during Christmas, so it has that going for it. I'm sure that's a big reason why a lot of people are comparing the two films, but it also does invoke that feeling that I feel like a lot of people get when they watch 90s action movies. So it may have been a conscious attempt from Collet-Serra to harken back and pay homage to that era of filmmaking. I really like Egerton in this kind of role too. I think he works great as the action underdog type character, and I think Bateman works as the perfect foil. And there's even an attempt to give this character Ethan some depth. He's not very enthusiastic about his career as a TSA agent because of his failure to be accepted into the police academy. The way it's presented in the movie definitely feels like a very generic, simple way to set up a character arc, but it was effective. As I alluded to earlier, I do think that this director has crafted a specific sort of brand when it comes to these films, because this does feel very similar to those 3 Liam Neeson flicks that I watched. And that's not an insult by any means. It oftentimes has a lot of logistical issues, but it's one of those movies in which you can kind of flip off that switch in your brain that flags all of those things where you're like, wait a minute, that seems pretty unrealistic. And that, to me at least, is just the kind of movie that you want to sit down on your couch and watch when it goes straight to streaming instead of in theaters. So I don't mind that this didn't get a theatrical release. Another thing I'll say is that although for the most part it focuses on the psychological cat and mouse game between the 2 main characters, there are a couple of action sequences in which the movie, in the span of like 2 seconds, goes from 0 to 100. One fight scene in particular that takes place in a car. Very cool camera movements in that scene. It was awesome. And some people are going to complain about the lack of action, but I think that scene is all the more cool because there was very little action up until that point. As I move into my issues with the film, it's going to sound kind of contradictory to what I was just saying a minute ago about turning your brain off and enjoying this type of film for what it is. I still have my limits to how far I'm willing to suspend my disbelief, and there were a ton of moments in this movie that crossed that line. Just to give a few examples, so Jason Bateman gives Ethan an earpiece to communicate with him, and he talks back to Jason through this earpiece when his coworkers are like several feet away and somehow they don't hear it or question why he's talking to himself. In another scene, Bateman communicates to him that he needs to be the one working the carry-on check lane that one of his men is going to be bringing this package through, but unfortunately for Ethan, one of his partners is currently working that lane. So he comes up with the idea to fill a cup with alcohol and swap it for his coworker's coffee mug. The fact that this works not only to get his coworker removed from the scene and presumably fired, but also the fact that he doesn't rat him out to his boss, I thought that was insane and a huge oversight that just is extremely unlikely. And those are just a few specific examples. There were probably a dozen other moments in this entire film that gave me the same feeling. Things that happened that definitely would have caused an immediate lockdown of the airport, but they don't because, well, that would be the end of the film. So many contrivances, so many close calls and setbacks that easily could have ruined the plan for the bad guys, and yet Jason Bateman's character will be chilling at one of the airport bars munching on food like everything's fine. I'm just sitting here thinking this dude should be way more nervous given how close he came to having his plan foiled. For the most part, I enjoyed Carry On. I don't think it's something you need to rush to see. Certainly not a movie that I'm ever going to revisit, or at least in the near future. But if you're looking for something breezy and entertaining to watch over the holiday season, it's not too violent. It's rated PG-13, although obviously there is some violence in it. Then again, I feel like so many families watch Die Hard every Christmas, and that movie's probably more violent than this. I'll give this one a light recommendation, so Carry On gets 3 stars. As always, if you managed to catch the film, I'd love to hear what you think about it down in the comments. And what's your favorite movie from this director? I know he made the first Orphan film, and I haven't seen that, so it's on my watch list. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe while you're at it if you want to see more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.